Go ahead.
It's a very good question. It's not, they're growing based on how the system works, believe it or not, is every student in New York State, say if they scored just random 300, you're going to be measured against every other child in New York State that scored a 300. So if all those 300, if the average scored a 301, and your child scored a 302, that would be considered growth. That's how it's compared. If the average was 301 and the child scored below that, then they're saying that they didn't make growth compared to their peers. Does that make sense?
So growth as compared to an average and not necessarily their score from the previous year?
It's compared to all like students, all fourth grade students scoring that score. Then there's an adjustment that's made based on if they're part of those different subgroups that I spoke of. Like if it's, from a household that is economically disadvantaged. If the child is a student with disabilities, there's a mathematical formula that's pretty complex that is applied.
So say it didn't work for them, just as a crapshoot, would that then be used against them if they didn't potentially grow? They're still a 4, they're still at the top of their class, but they didn't grow as compared to this calculation.
And each of those individual students in the teacher's class are going to make up a composite score. So in essence, if you attain 1 year's growth as compared to comparable students, then that's the expectation. That's what the state expects, each student to grow 1 year's growth as compared to comparable students. Some years, some students, unfortunately, for many reasons, and it may well have little to do with what goes on in the classroom, may regress, may show, a negative growth. The state does try to take that into consideration. Attendance is factored in. If a student is only here 80% of the time, let's say, then that individual, that student, that SGP, the student growth percentile, is multiplied by a 0.8, so it's not counted as an entire. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's a very, as Lynn said, it's very complex rubric or very complex calculation that is used to come up with a growth score for teachers. One of I think some of these are we've already talked about. What is the risk of refusing the test for the district? What is the risk of not refusing? For parents not refusing to take the test. Again, the 95% is there. What are the ramifications of it? Tom, I think you bring up a good point. At what point down the road are we talking about? We'll see. I think that's less important than you folks making informed decisions, doing what you think is right. What is the risk of not refusing? I don't see any risk of that other than students continuing to take assessment. It's a system. It has value. Do we think that it could be modified? I personally hope that it would be over time, but it does provide data for the school district. You can certainly argue the worth of that data or the validity of that data, perhaps in certain areas, but that's what we currently have. Will there ever be a time when parents and students can evaluate teachers? I believe that there is an account, or there is the possibility for surveys in the APPR. I don't know of any districts that use those currently in New York, but it is alluded, it is certainly mentioned in the APPR regulations as a possibility for, I believe, part of the 60%. That's all.
Is the only objection to testing teacher evaluation. I'll speak from an administrative point of view, the conversations I've had with staff. Teacher evaluation, the 50% is so not popular. It's just not, hearing that a lot. I don't like it either. Okay, there are questions after every testing period, the state testing, there are questions on the test where the teachers, after we talk, after they're packed up and sent away, oh my gosh, these 5 questions were like so not even relevant and challenging, and we all got different answers, and that was 3rd grade. So we do have those conversations. They're less and less. The first year, there were many, many conversations like that. Time spent on tests, yes. Prioritized testing, yes.
If the APPR is statewide, why are there such differences between schools locally? Examples of indicators, etc. It's a great question. The APPR is required statewide, but each school district within New York State has the ability to develop their plan locally with some boundaries, but each district does develop it locally. And as Mr. Aber alluded to a little while ago, we're currently, we have a committee together that's working to propose some changes to our APPR that we feel are going to be beneficial for the district, and evaluations and how we evaluate our teaching staff. And we're doing that in close communication with the teaching staff. Is there a fair way of evaluating a teacher? I guess I'd just answer that a little bit with my own opinion and how I look at it. I think like when we evaluate a student, when we evaluate student work, we want to look at the full body of work. We review this and assess instruction in several ways. We do this informally and informally. Currently, as I mentioned, we're reviewing our APPR. We want to make this as meaningful as possible. As a school administrator, I kind of look at when I'm working with teachers as being their coach. They are the experts in our classrooms. I cannot walk in as a high school principal and teach a class in pre-calc. It is not going to happen. But I do understand what good instruction looks like, and I can help coach a teacher to look at ways to improve instruction in that way, or find them different things that can help improve it. Sometimes it's by small degrees. So, a long answer to the question, but is there a fair way? There's probably always going to be a certain level of subjectivity to it, but I think we really want to get in collegial conversations with our professionals. The bottom line, like trying to help a student learn and grow, we want to have our teaching staff grow and become better, because all of us have the ability to do that.
I did miss one question too. What is the opinion of the faculty in the school district with regard to a potential loss of control over teacher evaluations? As you know from the governor's proposal, he is seeking to have a portion of the evaluation, a portion that's 60%, completed by outside evaluators. And I don't think that anyone within the school, teaching staff, administrators, or myself would agree that that is a good idea. We feel that, I certainly feel that our administrators are very good at evaluation. I think that what we have built up over the last few years, as far as what Mike alludes to, being a coaching dynamic, is such that we don't want to lose that and give that away to someone coming in who doesn't know our system or our professionals and have a frame of reference that we have fostered here within Cooperstown. Would you agree?
Agreed, yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Any other last minute questions? Yes.
This goes back to the testing. I was actually just wondering if it's been shown yet, or if there's been time enough still to show that the Common Core standards help students do better on Regents exams or on the SAT, ACT. Those are their ways out of high school and into college. You know, is this curve is this change in our whole curriculum gonna help them sort of meet the goals that in the end we see?
We're hearing already from our high school teachers that the writing and their ability to critically think, the vocabulary, we're hearing very positive things.
I think we're getting the front end of it right now.
Mhm,
Kind of
yeah.
our guinea pig group, quite honestly, is our sophomore class.
Okay.
They're the ones that are coming into all the Common Core tests, and it's going with them each year.
Mhm.
So instruction's kind of following them. But I do see that quite a while ago when we talked about things like close reads, as Mrs. Strang alluded to, those are things that are showing more depth than a broad picture. It's allowing them to dive into those pieces of instruction, and things like DBQs that students have to do on Regents exams. We're hearing very positive things about students being able to really ask thoughtful, critical questions and to answer them in a meaningful way. And that's also helping them when they're taking an SAT or they're writing letters to get into the colleges that they're looking at. So I think positive overall.
I think that, we've asked a number of very good questions tonight. There's certainly a lot more attention focused on all of these components this year as compared to in previous years. And I do think the governor is responsible for a great deal of that by what he's put into his budget proposals. He has, by what he's trying to bargain for, has certainly raised the anxiety level for all stakeholders. I will say that our faculty, I believe, does an extraordinary job. I think they are very supportive of students. I think they have a great facility for bringing all students to the next level. As far as our current APPR, as far as their growth scores are concerned, I can assure you that no one really has anything to worry about. We're very fortunate in that regard. Am I saying just, well, let's not pay attention to this 50% thing and maybe it'll go away? I don't believe that that's the case. I think that communication with the state is important. We are very much in a time of flux. We do not have a commissioner of education. And from what I have heard of the people talking in his or her to be stead, no one is saying very much at this time. As far as the test refusals, the letter that I sent home to you last week gives you the latest information from our state education department with regard to test refusals. And that's dated, I'm sure you noticed, January of 2013. We're waiting for a little more assistance, and hopefully a new commissioner will bring that. I'd like to thank all of you folks for coming out. I think it's been very productive. Megan?
Sorry, Mr. Aguirre, because you just brought up the test refusal, your letter, thank you very much for just commenting that parents are able to make that decision. Can you explain how students whose parents write a refusal letter, what exactly will happen the morning of the test?
I can. I didn't mean to bring that up because I didn't really want to answer it. Yes, I would be. I know. I work in the field. No, I'd be more than happy to do that. Students are required to refuse the exam. And if you look at the documents that I sent you, that's the case. We want to honor what you would like to do as parents. We in no way want to put students in an uncomfortable situation. Our plan is to, the day of the exam, if you send your child, we will remove them from the general testing area. One of our either a principal or a teacher who is assisting with that will talk to the child, reminding them that of your wishes for them not to take the test and obtaining from them their refusal. And then they will be taken to an alternative place in Alonzo.
Now, in all the research that I did, there is no New York State law that says that students have to refuse. So I'm just wondering, if we're all here looking out for the best interests of our children, I'm concerned for third graders having to actually give that verbal refusal as well.
And we will assist them in every way possible, as long as you tell them that that's your wishes. I'm sure that they will follow through with that. No one is going to, but that is the guidance that we have from the State Education Department, and that's what we'll follow.
Do you have any concerns about any bandwagon refusals? Other students saying, well, they're not taking it, do I need to
Is
do?
it gonna be done in a way, so if we have a third grader who is taking the test, that already is.
They will be, before we have this conversation, that conversation will occur outside of the room. It will not, it won't be in front of others. That's, I'm sorry if I didn't make that
No,
clear.
that's, I thought you meant as you can
It will,
the
no.
test.
They will be moved to another area before that conversation takes place, and then.
And if they say, oh, but I am going to take the test?
Well, if they grab it out of Ms. Gorman's hand and, take the pen away from her,
You never know.
you're on your own. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, will we know the percentage, I guess, of the state test that will count for the evaluation prior to the state test? You know what I'm saying?
I hope so. My hope is that they will say there's, one or two things, that either, we're going to leave it as is, and we are going to form a panel to study this over the course of 18 months or 2 years or whatever, and it will remain as it currently is, 2020, 60, or they'll say we'll have a moratorium on a certain component, and we will extrapolate from the other components. I don't know what,
Is
what
that
will
by
happen.
April 1st that we would know that they would make that decision, or do we know, we didn't know that?
There's no guarantee. I mean, the budget is due April 1st, but there have been many years when it hasn't, come to fruition by April 1st. Not with this governor, but previous governor.
Thank you.
No, no.
Okay, I know I'm going back to the numbers, but what will Cooperstown do if a huge percentage of the 3rd to 8th grade students opt out of the testing? What's the magic number? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Although you say it's law that it has to be implemented, several schools, districts, and states have thrown it out, and there have been no repercussions to them. So I'm just trying to figure out, if year after year, more and more students opt out, at what point do you guys say, no?
But we will follow the law. As long as it's required by the state, that's what we will do.
So even if only 50% of kids take it, you still do it?
Yes.
Has there ever been any repercussions anywhere, they didn't get 95%?
I don't know that, how many districts, I believe last year would have been probably the first year that any district reached that.
I mean, did the state follow through with this threat? For that?
Well, again, you have to keep in mind, it's the 95% is participation. There are also many components that go into that. What would be the remediation, so to speak, for opting out? If it's, let's say that you didn't meet your annual yearly performance for, the performance of students with disabilities, then the state could certainly turn around and say, well, you really need to redirect a certain portion of your Title I funding for professional development for your special education teachers. What would be the remedy for, opting out, redirecting 15% of your Title I funding to hold more informational sessions? I don't know what the remedy would be, I'm sure.
They could or they would? Like, you really think they would?
I don't know.
Because I think like, a lot of us are like, we feel like that's our only way to fight back, but we don't want to hurt the teachers. I think that's a lot, that's the feeling of a lot of people. So we just want to know, is it going to hurt the teachers? We have what?
I think that I think you have to look at that with, it's kind of an interesting scenario there, because you could have, if your child is going to score a 4 and they opt out, and 5 other people who have children that could score a 4 and they opt out, and there's 20 students in the class, I suppose it could affect the teacher's score. And it's dependent on which students do that. So, and again, it's a choice that people have. Our district's going to respect that choice that parents have, but it has a direct impact on our 3 through 8 teachers' scores, their growth scores right now.
But to date, nobody has been, no school or district has been punished.
Well, what the
But
question,
we're talking about two different things. Well, thank you again for coming, folks.
I just want to say real quick, I appreciate what the teachers are doing, and I know you guys are in a hard spot, but I really appreciate what you're doing, and the other professionals. I think you have been trying to keep us up on what's going on, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there any questions that you have?
More questions?
Probably available on the tell the daughter to join some portion of that will work its way out.